coming. And some of you repeat offenders. Thank you for
Yeah, just some familiar faces here.
That's great. This is a series that we're going to do over and over again, and then also add some other topics. We want this to be an education center as well, as a place where you're going to come with your tens of thousands of dollars in buying and selling. And so it's an honor that you're here. We're grateful. Parking was, I'm sure, difficult. But my name is Randy Blossel. I'm the president of the branch here. Larry Hilton, I have known from the cradle. We talk about this because our mothers were schoolgirls together in high school in Oakland. And she was pals with Yvonne and her twin Sylvia. And so they're both now departed. But what's really kind of fun is that Larry was born in Florida, then he moved to Texas, and then he moved to Oakland, and we lived in Oakland, and so we got to know each other when we were little kids. And his parents wanted to have 6 boys and a girl. My parents wanted to have 6 boys and a girl. We have like 5 children that line up in our families, respectively. They moved into the town next door in Lafayette. We lived in Moraga in the Bay Area. And after like a couple of years of not seeing Larry, we were like in 4th grade or something, I remembered how to get to his house, rode my bike over there, and as Larry recalls it, first thing I said when I saw him was, "Your hair's not very long, is it?" And now, so. But anyway, so we've known each other a long time, and Larry is, their family is they're scientists, they're engineers, they're entrepreneurs. Larry has a very successful insurance business called Dominion Insurance with many different insurance products. He started with legal malpractice insurance, and then he was always interested in gold, and so he'll tell you more of the story, but he authored the Utah Legal Tender Act, and he was signed into law in 2011, and he formed the UPMA. Maybe some of you were in part of his cottage meetings back in the day. And then he founded Alpine Gold. This is Alpine Gold Exchange in order to service the UPMA and to sell you gold and silver and goldbacks. And then they created in 2019 the Goldback, which is a real innovative form of gold. We'll know more about that in 2 Fridays from now. So anyway, it's great to have Larry here. He's a very busy guy, and he just loves to be here and talk about the genesis and where it's going for this whole movement and why your investment in gold and silver legal tender is a wise move. So please welcome Larry Hilton.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Well, thank you all for coming out, and looks like a few of you have made it a date night, but appreciate you coming out on a Friday night to talk about money. So I think that the last session was kind of focused on why gold, why precious metals, as opposed to our kind of predominant currency. And now we're going to take just a little refinement on that. We're going to say why gold legal tender. Because there's all kinds of gold, right? This is gold. You've got gold bullion. You have jewelry. You have different kinds of forms of gold. And so we're going to talk about a particular type of gold, which is legal tender gold. And this is something that the founders of our nation felt very strongly about, right? When they, in fact, looking back at the Constitution, the genesis of the idea of the Constitution was, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, was really pushed by money wars between the states. Legal tender wars. My legal tender is better than your legal tender kind of thing. And so that's kind of where that came from. So let's see if we can just move on to our agenda. So what we want to look at are the different types of legal tender that exist, uses for legal tender, and the benefits of legal tender. So when we talk about legal tender, what comes to mind when you think of of legal tender. Is that a term that you're familiar with?
Sadly, it's the green stuff.
It's the green stuff. That's kind of the first thought. So what we're going to look at here is the types of legal tender. We think of it as a recognized medium of exchange. In the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Congress is charged with the responsibility of coining money and regulating its value. So that is actually codified in Title 31 of the United States Code, Section 5103, where it actually defines what is legal tender. United States coins and currency, and this is the thing that I find very interesting, is our predominant legal tender that we all think of is actually a parenthetical, including Federal Reserve notes and circulating notes of reserve banks. Okay, so United States coins and currency, and I draw your attention to the one that appears first in the list. United States coins and currency, including Federal Reserve notes, are legal tender for all debts, public charges, taxes, and dues. And then foreign coin and gold and silver coin are not legal tender for debts. So, hey, Grant. Good to see you. Okay, so let's now contrast that with a term that has been coined, pardon the pun, in recent years. Although it's a very well-established term, the idea of specie. In fact, back in the day, 100 years ago, if you said, hey, payment in specie only, I mean, that really meant something. That meant that they were going to take the coin, they're going to bite on it, and make sure, okay, this is the real stuff. Specie means coin, legal tender coin. So as Randy alluded to back in 2000, really kind of started 2008. That was, you may recall, when Ron Paul threw his hat in the ring for the presidency, and he introduced into the American consciousness this concept of the inflation tax. Do you remember that? In the presidential debates, he started talking about the inflation tax. And so I was sitting in my living room one day in my easy chair. I think it was a Sunday afternoon, and I was thinking about the inflation tax. I said, that's kind of a raw deal for us as citizens. Is that really what we signed up for? Is that what we're supposed to have in the United States of America? And so I had my app, and I opened up the Constitution. I was flipping through, and it just kind of struck me, I think there's a solution to this. And I think it lies in the states, the reserved powers of the states. So I already referred to Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. If you go to Section 10, these are prohibitions against the states. States are not to do A, B, C, and D. And one of it says is states shall make nothing but gold or silver coin a tender in payment of debts. So that's a prohibition. They can't, because that was the big problem. You had Connecticut and New York, they were fighting over, they wouldn't accept each other's tender that they had created under the Articles of Confederation. In fact, they were close to going to war with each other over these kinds of issues. It was so intense about the legal tenders. They said, so no state is to coin money or make, now back in the day, coining money meant printing paper money. That's, Thomas Paine, and he said, of all the base coinage, the basest is paper money. So this idea of printing and coining was kind of melded together. So they said, nope, we don't want the states making money anymore, and you can't make anything but gold or silver coin a tender for payment of debts. So as an exception to a prohibition, it actually is a reserved power of the states to declare gold and silver coin to be legal tender. Now, go back in the 19th century, you had at least a couple of states that actually exercised that power, Colorado and Missouri. And they actually passed laws stating that gold and silver coin is legal tender. So I thought, well, maybe we need more of that. And so I wrote up a bill, drafted a bill. It was like 20 pages long. When it ended up passing, it was, I think, a page. But really, that's all that was necessary. I was kind of thinking, oh, gee, we have to have all these bells and whistles and so forth. And then I called up my representative, John Dougal, who is now our auditor, Frugal Dougal. And we had a little meeting in my office, and I presented this idea. And I said, I think that we ought to, I think it's high time for the states to exercise their reserve monetary powers. Because, we always talk about checks and balances, right? There's things between the different branches of government, but the different levels of government, federal and state, there's checks and balances there. And so the federal government has a role, and the state government has a role. They both have a role in establishing monetary policy. So this was adopted, this language here was adopted in 2011, and it made international news. Brad Galvez, who is now passed on, but a dear friend of mine, he was the representative that actually ran the bill. And he was pulled aside by the PR department for the legislature. And he says, I don't know what you're doing, but we're getting more inquiries by double about this legal tender bill that you passed than anything else. There were camera crews coming over from China, from Europe, wanted to do documentaries on this. And we had a big, seminar. And I thought that, well, this is just going to explode. Everybody's going to start using gold and silver to buy their groceries. And it didn't happen. And so we formed the UPMA, and we started to try to educate people because, it's hard to change a paradigm of thinking. We are very much, I asked the question, when you think of legal tender, what do you think of? And, the first thought was, you're thinking about, you got a seat. Do we have any extra chairs or anything here? So when we think about legal tender, this comes to mind, right? Not this. And so in order to think about this paradigm shift, I like to think that that's best illustrated by this pair of dimes. Okay? So we got a pair of dimes here for a paradigm shift. So this one was minted in 1964. This one was minted in 2004. What's the difference between the two?
Silver.
With this one, you could buy a loaf of bread today. With this one, you couldn't even buy a slice of bread. Okay? That's the paradigm that we have to get in our heads. And specie legal tender versus fiat legal tender that's created by just governmental edict is the key. So specie legal tender, this is Utah law, means gold or silver coin that is issued by the United States, gold or silver coin or bullion other than gold or silver coin that is issued by the United States is considered to be specie legal tender and is tender of the state if a court of competent jurisdiction issues a final unappealable judgment or order determining that the state may recognize the gold or silver coin or bullion other than gold or silver coin that is issued by the United States as legal tender of the state. Okay, I didn't write it that way. It's the Ledge Research did that, but they're very exacting in their wording. But basically, they're saying U.S. minted coin they're recognizing that as specie legal tender, as well as any other gold or silver coin or bullion that is recognized that a court says a state can make that legal tender. And I believe that there's a couple of cases that actually highlight that. Probably not going to go into that today, but
That sounds like
the term bullion coin would include coins that are made by a company, not by any government.
Yes, yeah, right, right. So that would include that. Oh, here we go. We got some seats here.
That sounds like, Larry, that last sentence is carving out that
There we go.
gold or silver coin that's legal tender in the United States is beyond court jurisdiction. It's only foreign gold or silver coin that the court can determine if it is or isn't. It almost sounds like they're carving out and saying, if it's gold or silver coin in the U.S., it's legal tender no matter what.
Right. Yes, they are saying that, but foreign or privately minted could be recognized as legal tender as well. So so that just kind of gives us a sense of what legal. So how many types of U.S. legal tender are there? Any guesses?
There's 3, aren't there?
There's
5?
five.
What are the 5?
Gold, silver, platinum, palladium, and then paper dollars.
That's right. So I'm not sure. Is there a palladium? Did they make a palladium? Okay, then I'm going to go 6 then, because I used to say 5 because I didn't recognize that we'd done a palladium. So then there's also the base metal coinage, like
Base metals.
you know. So we've got
Like a penny. A quarter.
like this. Okay, so that's base metal. This is precious metal. So that's your difference. So, but if you have legal tender, that's money received. So if you have gold coin or that's dime and you spend it, there's no gain because $1 worth no more for purposes of tender in payment of an ordinary debt than a note dollar. The law has not made note a standard of value any more than coin. The law knows no difference between Thompson v. Butler, 1877. This was right after the Civil War, and so people were trying to collect their debts and what they contracted in. You know, I gave the guy gold dollars pre-war, and he wants to pay me back with greenbacks. Are you kidding me? And so this was the Supreme Court saying, yeah, you're taking greenbacks. That's the legal tender. And then here in 2008, just harkening back to that, Fifth Circuit, a dollar's a dollar regardless of its physical embodiment, regardless of the physical embodiment of the currency. So there are some that have taken that to its logical conclusion. They say, well, if I get income in gold dollars and I want to pay my taxes in paper dollars, yeah, why not? A dollar's a dollar. I would not recommend that because, you know, even though that's what legally has been said and the federal government really hasn't drawn a distinction, and the Secretary of the Treasury is supposed to maintain the equal purchasing power of each time, you're still going to get in a boatload of trouble if you try to do that. But I know, some people have done. So that's one thing about the dollar. But if you do take earnings in gold and silver dollars, can you pay your taxes in gold and silver dollars? Well, you remember, United States currency is legal tender for the payment of taxes. You actually can. I know, like David Margrave, the guy that I mentioned, for 30 years, he paid all of his, he only had gold income. That was the only thing that he would accept, gold or silver. And he paid his taxes to the state of California and to the federal government in gold and silver coin. So that is an option. You can pay your taxes, but my recommendation is that it be linked up to the amount of, you know, revenue or income that was in that kind. So essentially, you if 50% of your income was in gold dollars, you couldn't pay 50% of your taxes in gold dollars. So that is an option.
Can you do that in Utah?
Yeah, absolutely. They have to. It's the supreme law in the land, right? Now, but that is actually a really good question. Because, for example, David Margrave, he paid the federal government. He was instructed by the IRS to go to Ogden, Utah, to pay the federal government. State government, on sales tax back in 2012, they adopted a law for the payment of sales taxes that are collected by merchants in gold and silver. So they said that until do recognize that at some point in time, they will actually accept that. But I would make the argument that under the supremacy clause, federal government says those coins are legal tender for the payment of taxes, so they have to honor that federal law. So I don't think anybody's challenged them on that yet.
When the Legal Tender Act first passed, I tried to pay my property tax with silver
Remember
coin.
that? Yeah.
But they wouldn't accept it.
Yeah. So, yeah, well, and the problem with that is they're not going to accept it at the value of, they'll say, they would say, oh yeah, $1. I'll accept this as $1. That's the problem. That's why you want to match income to tax payments. If you have, $4,000 of gold dollar income is equivalent to $100,000 of paper dollar income. So you want to, and David Margrave, he always paid his taxes in gold. And what he would do is you just fill out the tax form, just like everybody else, and you just pay it in gold. But it had the effect of taking him down to the lowest tax bracket in terms of rate. So instead of paying 35%, he was paying 10%. So when you're looking in your monetary tool belt, this one's for debt, okay? And this one is for holding purchasing power and acquiring capital assets and things of that nature. And I'll just point out, it is the law today that the Secretary of the Treasury is required statutorily to maintain an equal purchasing power of each kind of U.S. currency. So that means the gold dollar and the silver dollar should have equal purchasing power. So that's not being done. These are elected officials who are breaking the law every single day. And I doubt that this has occurred for, several decades. So the interesting thing is, what Reagan put into place with monetary policy is sound. It is strong. And it was an invitation to us as Americans to embrace our monetary heritage, which is gold and silver, real money, with purchasing power that lasts, so you can actually keep the fruits of your labor. Okay, let's just talk a little bit about tax, and then we'll open for questions and we'll wrap up. So when it comes time to pay taxes, we've determined that there's 6 different kinds of currencies. So how do you calculate your tax liability? So we're going to look at what's $1. Can we actually pay our taxes in gold and silver if we wanted to? And if we wanted to use an exchange rate, what is the appropriate exchange rate? Okay, so what's $1? U.S. Supreme Court, 1877, a coin dollar is worth no more for purposes of tender in payment of an ordinary debt than the note dollar. The law has not made note a standard of value any more than the coin. The law knows no difference between them. Thompson v. Butler, 1877. This was right after the Civil War, and so people were trying to collect their debts and what they contracted in. I gave the guy gold dollars pre-war, and he wants to pay me back with greenbacks. Are you kidding me? And so this was the Supreme Court saying, "Yep, you're taking greenbacks." That's the legal tender. And then here in 2008, just harkening back to that, Fifth Circuit, $1 is $1, regardless of its physical embodiment, regardless of the physical embodiment of the currency. So there are some that have taken that to its logical conclusion and said, well, if I get income in gold dollars and I want to pay my taxes in paper dollars, yeah, why not? $1 is $1. I would not recommend that because, even though that's what legally has been said, and the federal government really hasn't drawn the distinction, and the Secretary of the Treasury is supposed to maintain the equal purchasing power of each time, you're still going to get a boatload of trouble if you try to do that. But I know some people have. So that's one thing about the dollar. But if you do take earnings in gold and silver dollars, can you pay your taxes in gold and silver dollars? Well, you remember, the United States coin currency is legal tender for the payment of taxes. You actually can. I like David Martin to the amount of, revenue or income that was in that kind. So essentially, you, if 50% of your income was in gold dollars, you could pay 50% of your taxes in gold dollars. So that is an option.
Can you do that in Utah?
Yeah, absolutely. They have to. It's the supreme law of the land, right? Now, but that is actually a really good question. Because, for example, David Margrave, he paid the federal government. He was instructed by the IRS to go to Ogden, Utah, to pay the federal government. The state government, on sales tax back in 2012, they adopted a law for the payment of sales taxes that are collected by merchants in gold and silver. So they said that until such time as we have a methodology or, kind of the plumbing, to be able to accept that, then we want you to convert it at what is called the London fix. So they actually specify a conversion that they want, but they do recognize that at some point in time they will actually accept that. But I would make the argument that under the supremacy clause, federal government says those coins are legal tender for the payment of taxes, so they have to honor that federal law. So even if this isn't legal tender, it is a negotiable instrument under the Uniform Commercial Code, the UCC, which has been adopted in all 50 states. So this is a legal tender surrogate that can actually be distributed and exchanged just like legal tender. So, monetary intent. This is a 1984 Utah Supreme Court case where they're trying to figure out, hey, is gold taxable? You have to pay sales tax on gold. And then Justice Dallin Oaks, gave the court's opinion, and he said where Kruger Ranch, you guys know where Kruger Ranch are? Those are those. Yeah, because our South African, the Kruger Ranch, those were some of the first gold coins that's come out before Reagan reinstituted the mintage of gold coins in 1985. So Kruger Ranch, that was what people, this is 1984. So Reagan hadn't pulled the trigger on that yet. Where Kruger Ranch were transferred as a medium of exchange, the coins remain intangible personal property, not subject to tax. So they're saying that your monetary intent makes a difference. If you're using the coin as currency, then it becomes currency. It says, but where they are transferred as an investment commodity, they become tangible personal property within the meaning of the General Sales Tax Act. For our purchasing power, question mark, on that. Buying and selling goods and services, acquiring assets, incurring debt, paying taxes. Okay? Gold and silver. Yeah, let's take a look at that. There we go. So if you look at, this is price level in the United States measured in paper dollars. Okay? So the interesting thing is, when they passed the Constitution, as defined in the internal, the IRS code, you want to get gold when you're receiving income. Like for example, if you're an employee and you have the option of having your payment set in a certain amount of gold or a certain amount of paper dollars, you know those paper dollars are going to lose value over time. Right? So if you say, well, I'll take, 10, gold bucks now or whatever it is, and that's the agreement, that's going to hold its purchasing power over time. So if you have an employer like that, that might be something worth discussing. When dealing with capital assets, buying or selling, you want to establish your tax basis using gold dollars. So if you buy a house or sell being able to do that in gold dollars, that gives you a tax basis that is, cannot be argued with. And then for preserving purchasing power, you want to avoid the inflation tax and the barter liability of using non-legal tender gold. That is the end of my presentation. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to entertain those. Yes.
So if I wanted to go out and buy a house, would I just get a loan, get it from the bank, come here, get it all in gold, and give it to the guy for a new house?
Yeah, I think it would be very difficult to do something other than a cash purchase, of the house, because when you have banking institutions involved, they're going to require everything to be denominated in Federal Reserve accounts. But when you go to sell it, you could, and if you have a cash buyer, you could just say, hey, answer this one payment in gold. And then you have a choice, because now you have a purchase price that's in paper dollars, and you have a sales price that's in gold dollars. Okay, well that's obviously going to look like a loss, unless you take the paper dollar amount and you translate it into gold. So my personal view is if you have one side of the transaction in gold, then in gold dollars,